not taking on that position and now learning how to do it. Coming into it. I've always seen it as that is my role.
So the first thing woman saw was relationship. The first thing man saw was work.
Like I've always been like, nah, like I want stable marriage. Probably because it wasn't something that I saw a lot growing up.
But for me, marriage somewhat is about sex, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I'll tell you why.
Or
we've got 4 married people here, and obviously single male. Soon come. One of the things I wanted to ask, which has kind of been on my head for a while, is when was the moment you realized, oh, I'm the leader in this? I'm the leader of this household. Like, not the time when you got married, not the time when you proposed, not the time when you had your first kid. Well, it might be that point. But when was the point where you realized, oh my gosh, I'm a leader of this household. I'm the head of this. There's pressure and weight that comes with this that no one really told me about, or no one could really prepare me for.
I think I always kind of like just knew that and took on that responsibility going into it. Doesn't mean I'm a great leader. There's things my wife has said, you're not leading on this, you're not leading on that. There's things she clearly says, but I guess the environment I'm coming from has always been that thing. But even outside of a let's say a biblical principle or standpoint of the way it's supposed to be done, I think even outside of that, I think there are things which I lead on just because, it's my character. Me and my wife had this conversation where, should I even say this conversation? Got to think. Is it?
What was said in your brain, and then before you say it.
I think at the end of the conversation, I think, wait, is she going to say, why are you talking about But we had this conversation.
Safe space, but it's not that safe.
Well, we had this conversation. Well, we'll see. But we had this conversation, and we were talking about, we both work, and we're both bringing in money, so we're both contributing now, right? And at one stage, it wasn't that, more recent years, she started earning, she's been investing into her career from years before that. So I was just kind of like, funding everything, right? And we had this conversation where we were talking about the fact that she's saying, that she contributes as well, so it's not like a situation of like, I can't remember what it was even about. So it wasn't, and I'm not like a dictator. Which sometimes I think she wishes I was a bit more like, just put your foot down and just, but I'm not like that. So we're having a conversation about anyway, talking about, she's saying she brings in and stuff like that. And I remember saying to her, yeah, but I said, there's a massive difference, right? And the difference is, in the situation we're in right now, you contribute and you bring in, definitely you're bringing in. But you never ever stop and think, I have to bring in. You bring in out of choice. So there are jobs which might come up, which in my head I'm like, do it, but you're not feeling it. So you don't do it. I said, I haven't got that choice in a relationship. You might say you want to take a break. Whether it's a month, half a year, you make those decisions based on how, on and not making it sound like she's selfish, but you make those decisions based on, how you're feeling, but you're not ever thinking, you don't ever have to think. You don't know, not that you're never thinking, you don't ever have to think about how does this affect the household, because in your head, I've got it covered, whatever the case is, but I have to think about all of those things there. So I can't say I'm going to take a break for 6 months and be like, she's got it, she'll take care of it, but I have to, I've taken up, that position where it's kind of like, I think about all the things, I think about the house, I think about the bills, I think about the structure of what's going on, but I think, and she said to me, you know what, yeah, you're actually right. She never actually thought about it like that before. She goes, yeah, but you're right. You do, and that's what I mean, in a very practical way, you could say take leadership of the house. And to be honest, it's not a struggle for me in those senses there, because however it is, whether from my mum or whoever it is, I've always taken the role of responsibility, so that's not a struggle for me, but should I say there's a pressure? I don't feel the pressure. I guess, I don't feel the pressure, to be honest. But I don't think I feel the pressure because I think I've always assumed and taken on that position more than actually not taking on that position and now learning how to do it. Coming into it. I've always seen it as that is my role. You know, I've always seen it. So even if my wife was trying to do more, you know, the position I take, I don't, to some degree, allow her maybe to even do more. You know, I'm kind of like, no, it's cool, I'll do it. I've got it covered, don't worry. No, it's fine. No, it's cool. Leave it, it's fine, it's fine. You know, no, it's cool. I'll go do it. So I don't even allow her to at the same time. You know, maybe if I wasn't like this, maybe she would be kind of like feeling like she has to be more of that. But maybe my character has made her feel like she doesn't have to be that because he'll sort it out.
Goes back to what Omar said about taking initiative. Like it's just something. Sometimes it's just in you. You don't wait to even if there was a cleaner in here that was going to sweep up the floor. If I see a little wrapper on the floor, I'm gonna pick it up. You know what I'm saying? It's just something that's just in you. Yeah.
I was gonna say the same thing. Growing up in a single mum household, but being the oldest of 5, you've had to lead and almost parent your siblings your whole life. So when it comes to getting married or even just being in a relationship, naturally before even getting married, you still see yourself as a certain, because it's just natural, it's ingrained in you. So it goes from things to even being chivalrous, walking on the side of the street, opening the door, driving the car, making sure she's never driving. You know what I mean? All those little tiny details, even when it comes to the house and, when it came, so for example, the whole mortgage process, I haven't let her touch anything. She sat down on the whole thing, making sure all of that's sorted. So I guess it's been a natural thing from being young. That's carried on, and I like it like that. I like taking on more of the burden and allowing her to rest. Do you know what I mean? I think it's better. I'd rather her not stress and me stress than have both of us stressing. You know what I mean?
You know what it is though, like, because my wife said something the other day, and because I was like, oh, babe, I'll do this, I'll do that, don't worry about this. Similar to what you guys are saying, don't worry, I got it. And I'll be up late. So I'll be up late doing whatever, making sure, and it could be something simple. There's washing up in the sink. Oh, we've just got to it at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock or whatever it might be. Oh, babe, I'll do it. Oh, she'll be like, leave it to the morning. I'll be like, no, let me do it now. So when you come downstairs in the morning, there's nothing there. You got a fresh mind and X, Y, and Z. And she said, every time you keep coming to bed late, you're not actually, you say you're looking after us. You're saying you're caring for us. But what's happening is the knock-on effect in the morning is that you're tired and your body isn't functioning how it probably should be, because when you feel like you're caring for us and doing all the things that you think you are doing, actually what you're doing can be kind of detrimental in some cases. So then you're potentially around for less time and your lifespan is potentially less, because all of this, I needed to wash up at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, or I need to do this phone call, or I need to book this in and this and that, is then making us think like, oh, he only got 4 hours sleep. And he said he was getting up with the baby and at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. And now he's meant to run a whole day. And he said he was going to cook dinner and all these kind of things. So that's what I'm saying in terms of pressure and what you're taking on. Is it not a case of like, in some ways, not every way, but in some ways, there are some detrimental aspects to that?
Absolutely. I think I'm going to have to go Bible now, yeah? I'm going to have to go Bible now. Hey, I'm going to have to go Bible. All right, so Genesis 2. When God created man, he created man to work. Yeah, the first thing that man saw was work. So it's tend the garden and keep it. There was no woman around. So man has known work despite having the woman. When the woman was created and the first thing she saw was man. So the first thing woman saw was relationship. The first thing man saw was work. Men naturally, without the relationship, this is why whenever we're in something, we like to go into our heads and process, because we were by ourselves. So naturally, we're internal people. We like to go into the cave and figure things out. Whereas the woman likes to speak because she saw the man. So they lack communication. Then check it, when God curses man, he curses the work of his hands. He curses man's work. When God curses the woman, he curses the relationship. Because women are relational, men are workers. Naturally, when we're not doing what we've been called to do, well, this is why I say that we'll get up and we'll do that in the middle of the night. We take great pride in our work. It's something that's naturally ingrained inside men. Women take great pride in the nurturing, the comfort, and the relational aspect, which is why she's the one that's going to tell you, listen, this is why it's detrimental. You're messing up. Do you realize the knock-on effect? Because she's doing the relational aspect to bring you back to where you should be. So that's why I think there's a good blend of both. And that's why it's good to have, if you leave a man to work, the man will work. And he will work himself to the ground and we'll burn ourselves out. But we do need our counterpart, the woman who's suitable to bring us back down. So I do think there is detriment, but I think that's why we do have our wives.
That's true. That's true. Faith, how would you say, or have you found to that point where, now I'm a leader, you know, freshly married? Do you feel like you've hit that point where like, I'm leading this whole household now? Like this is real?
I still think it's early doors. Well, it still is early doors rather. And I think I've been looking at what leadership looks like. Because it's funny, because I remember maybe about a month before we got married, I said to wifey that, I need to level up. I need to get my game up. And she's like, babe, don't try and be someone. Don't feel like you have to be someone you're not. Like, I love you as you are, and you're great as you are. You can improve, as we can always improve, but don't try to feel like you have to be someone that you're not, or become something. You don't have to become something. All the qualities are there, and that took off the burden. Because I feel like, I guess most men who are serious about getting married, as in when they're serious about what the commitment means, they would have to evaluate, okay, cool. Am I doing this right? Is this in order? Is that in order? I feel that's just natural as men. So I feel I got to a point where I was like, okay, I think things are in order, but I do know there's a responsibility that comes with that. And I think, again, me being able to lead my household and our family is leading from our strengths. So if I know wifey's better with money, there's no point me saying, as the man, I've got to handle the finances.
Absolutely.
When that's her strength. So I think, again, leadership is also about delegating and knowing that whose strength is this, whose weakness is that, and how can we complement each other. Essentially the wife being the helpmate. You know, how can she help X, Y, Z. So I think maybe ask me again in a year's time and see where that goes. But I feel like when people ask me how's marriage, I say it's friendship 2.0. Because I've married my friend in it. So again, nothing has changed. Because wifey said, don't feel pressured to become this thing or to put on this cloak or this cap of whatever that I was trying to envision. It's just responsibility is the same. And I often say that I'm not minimizing marriage, but for me, marriage somewhat is about sex. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I'll tell you why.
All right.
I'll tell you why. I'll bring it back.
Please.
About sex and living together. I'll tell you why. Because I feel as a companion, I can give my wife everything, biblically. But I can't sleep with her. And based on your doctrine, I can't live with her. So I've been with her for 5 years. So we've built our lives together like that. So the only difference now is we sleep with each other and we live with each other. So using that as context, what I'm talking about. I'm not belittling marriage to just those things, but that's the only real change thus far. And I don't see it going any further.
Okay.
Well, it may go further.
I think there's other changes.
There may be other changes.
I think there's a small change.
As a seasoned man, fill me in.
No, I think forget even being seasoned. I think even like just the idea of marriage. So you were with her 5 years, right? You said. When did you decide you wanted to marry her?
After 2.5.
Did you get engaged after 2.5?
We got engaged, I think 3. Then lockdown happened.
Okay, so you're basically about 2.5, right? Yeah. At the time when you got engaged, right, and at the time when you were like, actually, this is who I want to marry. Were there no other thoughts that came with marriage, like the idea of like things you might have to do, whether it's your living space? Did you not start thinking about, okay, at some point we're going to have children? You know, just like, did not all these other thoughts come in? Because I just know for me, and I spoke to other people which have been exactly the same thing, same situation, where as soon as they actually said in their head, actually, I'm going to get married, not one day I'll get married, but actually said, actually, I think I want to get married. There's all of these other thoughts that are things you just don't think about when you're just dating, you know, when you're single, because you don't have to think about those things there, which is things like, you know, because, you know, with marriage, obviously sleeping together comes with it, living together comes with it, but then you also know children come with that potentially. Then, you know, a life mate comes with it. So then it's like, now my life and where it goes is going to be built with someone else as well. So now for me, my thoughts started being like, okay, where are we gonna live? Like, not talking about business, but I remember I bought my first place because I saw my wife in church. Well, she wasn't my wife at the time. We weren't even together, and I looked. We weren't together actually.
Yeah. I said, I'm copying that place in faith. Yes.
And I
Respect
said,
it.
you know, in my head, I remember the moment I looked over and we've been talking a little bit, and I said, I'm gonna marry that woman. Not like one of those things like, you know, like she had no choice in it. But I was just like, I thought I'm gonna marry her. And I remember as soon as I said, I'm gonna marry her, right? All these things started flooding in my head of like, if we get married, I need to think about, I'm like, right now, I live with my mum. So I said, we're gonna have to have a place, we live together, right? I thought about that, I said, and at some point we're gonna have children. So ideally, where would we wanna live? And where do I want my children growing up? And these are things which I never actually implicitly ever thought about. You thought about them a little bit, you know, where you wanna live when you're older, this and that. But I never actually fully thought about these things until I was like, I want to marry her. And I knew what came with that. So the very next day, literally, I went into work and I saw some guy who I heard talk about property before. And I said, what's a mortgage? How do you do a mortgage? Like, what comes with it? Saw another guy, how do you do a mortgage? I started the process of buying a house before even me and my wife were together, because I thought if we're gonna get married, there are things I need to do and make sure that we have somewhere to live, somewhere to stay, and just all of these things there. So I know these things might just be thoughts, right? But I think they, not even that they manifest, but they actually, literally, not in like a superstitious way, they literally manifest into the way you live your life, the decisions that you make, the things you're going to do. So as much as I do agree it is like sleeping together and it is living together, but also your life is now wrapped up with this other person. So even where you live, the location where you live, it's not based on what you would have lived 6 years ago. It's now based on what suits both of you now. And, you know, example where you might, the way you want your children to be schooled, whether it's homeschooled or whether it's going to a certain school, whether it's kind of like you go to this school, you go to that school. Now it's kind of muddled up with her as well and what she feels. And all these type of things there. So I feel like it is what you're saying, but I think there is a little bit more that goes with it. And that's why people say, you know, married people are more responsible, because as soon as you decide to get married, you take on the responsibility of someone else and someone else with the idea of having children as well.
Yeah. I think there's definitely, I get what you're saying. I feel like we had both made, and I had made decisions from early.
Yeah.
From like a year and a half in, we did the children thing.
Yeah.
We did the home thing.
Yeah.
So when you're now saying I do, and you're already married, there's nothing new.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that.
Because you already planned that 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
I thought when you made the decision to get married, that's what I was talking about. Not I do is like way after you. From the decision. I'm talking from the decision of getting married.
Yeah.
You know, your mind frame changes from that at that point. Because I do, you've already made the decision.
Yeah. I feel it probably like a small percentage change. Only because from like age 12, I've had my brain on getting married.
Yeah.
So all of secondary school, I've had my brain on getting married, and all of my dating life, I have my brain on getting married. Like, can I date Shanice? I look like I can marry Shanice. I'm not going to date her. I'm not going to marry her. So I've had my brain from early conditioned. So these things where I'm like, okay, where will we live, or what type of XYZ? I've had that in the bag from early. So now, I guess as we grow and develop, as a person, my thoughts will change, my morals will change, and wifey's as well. She will develop at XYZ. So I think it's more so adapting to the changes that life brings now, and any circumstance it brings along the way.
I'm in that same sort of place now as a single guy. Like I have in mind like the things that I would want, you know, my life to look like, etc. But I also I leave a certain amount of space for, you know, like you say, the compromise, or just the fact that you're now going to be wrapped up within a whole nother person, a whole nother human being who has their own thoughts and ideas. And maybe when they were like 6 years old, they always said they want to live in a certain part of the country, or they want to raise their kids in a certain way or whatever. But yeah, I've always had in my mind like what I want my life to look like, you know, and obviously the older you get, things start changing. You start saying, oh, well, what I wanted 6 years ago isn't what I want today, or I have new perspective or whatever. I was even thinking the other day, like, oh, if I was to live in another part of the country, because I always say, like, we're getting bumped in London, man. Like, I just, you know what I'm saying? I don't know how much more, I don't know how many more years I've got of just like completely just, you know, finessing myself to stay in the city. But I started thinking the other day, I was like, yo, but what if I moved to another city and then I have kids, like I get married and have kids with somebody, and then my kids have a different accent to me.
That's how I feel in Essex, bro.
But then I had to pause and be like, hold on a second. My parents are from the Caribbean. My mum's from St. Vincent. My dad's from Jamaica. I don't have like a thick Caribbean accent. I can pull it out when I need to, but like essentially I have a slightly different accent to my parents. So they had to make that.
Accent.
Yeah, well, yeah. Do you know what I mean? I mean, my mum, you know what they like. It depends who she. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. It depends who they're talking to on the phone. Do you know what I'm saying? But yeah, like they had to make that decision as well at some point. Like, oh, I'm moving to this country, gonna have kids with somebody. My kids aren't gonna speak the same way that I grew up. You know what I'm saying? Having the accent or whatever. So yeah, as the older I get, the more I'm like, there's so many compromises that you have to be willing to make. Even if you don't end up having to make them, you might be fortunate enough to meet somebody and they just think exactly the same way you do on a certain amount of topics or whatever. But yeah, you kind of have to allow like a little bit of room just for that, the possibility of that to happen, and be flexible. I guess that's from the people that I've seen have successful marriages. It's it's the flexibility, it's the willingness to compromise. Do you know what I'm saying? And understanding of your roles as well, like Omar was saying before, like that's so key. But yeah, I don't know, man. I've got like a new perspective when it comes to relationships over the last few years. And I was the same way, like growing up, like, yeah, man, I want to be married. I've never really kind of had that kind of thing of like, oh yeah, I just want to be gallus till I'm 50 years old type of thing. Like I've always been like, nah, like I want stable marriage. Probably because it wasn't something that I saw a lot growing up.
That's interesting.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I didn't really grow up in like a super stable home, so to say, like a loving marriage. Do you know what I'm saying? That wasn't something that I saw. Do you know what I'm saying? So I've always been like, nah, like I want to be able to like be affectionate with my wife, and I want my kids to grow up seeing that as well, so that it can have a knock-on effect, a positive knock-on effect for them. But yeah, all of these things are just like, you can have things in your mind. It's like, like a man can plan things in his head, but at the end of the day, like God orders his steps. So you kind of have to be willing to just be like, okay, wherever the road takes me, to an extent, I got to be willing to kind of roll with it.
Are you actively looking?
Not currently, nah. Okay. I would have said, yeah, I don't know, man. Cause I got out of a relationship just over a year ago, and we were together like a long time, like nearly 5 years. So it was like, do you know what I'm saying? Marriage was the next step. Do you know what I'm saying? Engagement, all that kind of stuff. We were like on the cusp of it. And I think after going through the pain of the loss of it and like mourning the loss of what was, now I'm kind of just like, man, I feel like I'm only just getting back to me. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's been a really like big realization. I feel like I lost touch at some point with just me, myself, as an individual. And yeah, now I'm in a place where I'm just like, all right, if God just drops somebody down, in front of me, and it's undeniable, then I can't deny it. Do you know what I'm saying? But it would need to be undeniable. So at this point, I'm just more focused on, I guess, building my own, solid oak tree, making sure that I'm as strong as I need to be, and as equipped as I need to be. But yeah, I'm just trying to skirt. Just trying to skirt past it, I can't lie. But sometimes that's the thing as well. When you come out of a long-term relationship, sometimes the man will be like, yo, man, just get back in the saddle, man. Like, it's time, man. And I'm like, yo, I don't need that. That's the last thing I need right now, I'll be real, yeah.